Welcome to my parenting class dealing with teens and youth culture. The first topic I'm going to talk about is youth culture and eating disorders. So let's just start right out. A little bit about me. I am a certified family life educator. Um, I graduated from Concordia University in 2018 in May with my degree. The goals of this class is to give you information so that you may know the signs of an eating disorder, how to help someone with an eating disorder, and so that you can feel confident in the way to see the signs and to get help needed in a calm fashion. That's the biggest point, is the calm aspect. If you overreact or get very tense, then they will as well get tense. So how to do it calmly is a big thing. I want you to meet TJ Warshevsky. This is a personal friend of mine. He and his mother, pictured above, have been dealing with eating disorders. TJ has anorexia. Well, had anorexia. He got it starting high school, between his 8th grade year and his 9th grade year. He started out like a normal kid, would play sports, hang out with his friends, do stuff with his family. And then he started getting into it because of his sports. He had to keep his same weight and keep track of what he ate to keep the shape he did. So he would start working out, he would control what he ate, and eventually he became anorexic. His mother found out between junior and senior year of high school and has been doing everything she can to help him. He got to the point where he would do 1,000 sit-ups and 1,000 push-ups every day before he would let himself have dinner and before bed. He was very, very skinny, as you will see in a minute, and he has gone to rehab for it a few times. This is an unsettling subject, so the images that I have of TJ can be unsettling if you aren't prepared. So this is TJ at his lowest. He documented every minute and every day of his battle. He knew he was struggling with anorexia, and he knew that he couldn't do much about it. So he went to rehab, did his programs, but still had it in his mind. So after he'd get out of rehab, he would get back on the track of his exercises and not letting himself eat. He ended up passing away and was found in his dorm while he was at dental school. He hadn't eaten dinner and he was very, very thin. So with him recording all of his struggles through anorexia, he actually started a book about his life and anorexia in general for other people. That book was never finished as he passed away. His mother found the book and she has taken over the book. So she finished the book and published it. And she had published it with all of his original stuff in it, and then finished the book with her side, a mother's side of the story, and how a mother can help, or how a family can help somebody with an eating disorder. So that is TJ's story. This is a video clip. If you type that into a web page or whatever, it's a video about Susan, who is TJ's mom, talking about her son and talking about her experiences and explaining everything a little more, but getting to see the face-to-face reaction of it is incredible. It's hard for me to do here, so I shared the link with you, hoping that you can look into it. Uh, and we'll give you more information about her book later as well if you are interested in that. Um, so look into that. It's a really good, touching story. So, this is a problem among teens nowadays. There are many, many stories of kids and teenagers who end up with an eating disorder from one way or another. A lot of times we don't hear about them, but this is a problem in our society nowadays. So, what are eating disorders? Eating disorders are real, complex, and devastating conditions that can have a serious consequence for health, productivity, and relationships. They are not a fad, phase, or lifestyle choice. Eating disorders are serious and potentially life threatening conditions that can affect a person's emotional and physical health. Um, so, this is talking more about what they are. Um, we consider them phases or lifestyle choices. That is not true. In fact, it is very serious mental conditions where the youth picture themselves younger or thinner or something, and they try to reach that stereotype. So I say younger because most of the time when children are younger, they're thinner, they're a little different, and they want to go back to that size. They want to be that smaller person or something. So um, it's always going to be part of their mind. It's not something that will get out, and it's not a diet, it's not a lifestyle choice. Um, Nobody goes into life thinking, I want to have an eating disorder. Um, it just happens once it's in their mind and it's hard to control without the proper help. So, there are 3 types of eating disorders out there: anorexia, bulimia, and binge eating. I'll go through a little bit of each of them with you, describe it as it's listed here, and we'll talk about them. So, anorexia is um, that teenagers take extreme measures to avoid eating and control the quality and quantity of the foods they do eat. They may become abnormally thin or thin for their bodies and still talk about being fat. They typically continue to diet even at very unhealthy weights because they have a distorted image of their body. So, for this, um, the kids control what they eat, whether it be how much they eat or what's actually going into their body, and both. Most of the time, it's both. They become very, very thin, like you saw in my friend TJ, but they often feel fat because in their head, their mental capacity is still telling them that they are still fat. So it is a disease. It's something that they're thinking about. So when they look in the mirror, they don't see that thin skeleton like figure. They see a very fat person. Um, Bulimia is teenagers who nerve, uh, typically binge or purge by um, engaging in uncontrollable episodes of overeating or binging, usually followed by compensating behaviors such as purging through vomiting, use of laxatives, fasting, excessive exercise. Um, Eating binges may occur as often as several times a day, but are most common in the evening and at night hours. Teenagers with bulimia often go unnoticed due to the ability to maintain a normal body weight. So, for this, people tend to eat such as a normal diet at school or at family dinner or different things like that. But when they're alone, they will use one of these ways to purge it out and lose that weight so they don't get that calories. This is very hard to catch because their body weight is normal. So, since they have that continuous body weight, it's very hard to often see that somebody has bulimia. The third type is binge eating. This is characterized by a sense of uncontrollable excessive eating, followed by feelings of shame and guilt. Unlike bulimia, teenagers with binge eating disorder do not compensate by binges. They typically are overweight. They get um, in their head that after they eat, that it's something shameful or they're guilty or they feel bad and then they eat again. So they're typically overweight. They feel like they have no control over their behavior and eat in secret when they are not hungry. They constantly are trying to eat. They're constantly eating because they're just so filled of shame and guilt. So, some possible signs of eating disorders are eating in secret, calorie counting, fear of becoming fat, binge eating, purging, food phobias, or avoidance. These may or may not be true for everybody who suffers from an eating disorder, and there may be others that are not on the list. But these are the biggest ones when looking at eating disorders. Not everybody has an eating disorder if they count calories or um, eat in secret. Sometimes people just do that because other people are judging them and they just want to have a snack, or they're counting calories as part of a diet, but they're not having an eating disorder. So most of the time, it's more than one of the signs. It's counting calories and purging, it's counting calories and food avoidance and binge eating, or different things like that. So you have to be careful when looking at the signs to see what they have and what is a part of that. So, some factors that might lead to eating disorders, um, and that aren't specific just to eating disorders, um, but many things that lead to them for teens is low self esteem, anxiety, defining yourself on terms of acceptance, helplessness and need for control, difficulty in managing emotions, and social anxiety and problems with social skills. The biggest one here is helplessness and a need for control. Many diseating, many eating disorders, um, it is the need for control. So many students or youth dealing with eating disorders feel like they don't really have control. Their parents have control. Their parents tell them what to do, when to go to school. The school, they tell them that they need to do homework, they need to do this. So they're constantly getting controlled. So this normally they see as something they can control. I can control my food. I can control when I eat, what I eat, how much I eat, or I can control how fast it leaves my body if I purge. So this is a big thing for many people with eating disorders is controlling, having that ability to control, but also defining terms in appearance. So I heard a story about a girl who was 9 when she was called fat, and she ended up with an eating disorder. So she was defining herself in terms of appearance. She knew that's what she had because that's what people told her, or um, different things like that. So even the smallest things that seem innocent can really affect a person. So some stats. Obviously, these aren't the only stats out there, but these are the ones that I think show the greatest amount of change, or um, greatest amount of information that's surprising out there. So let's start with 42% of first through third grade girls want to be thinner. So first graders through third grade girls, they are still very, very young and they're already thinking about losing weight. That's about half the third graders almost. We're getting way too many kids that want to be thinner. when they're perfect just the way they are right now. 46% of 9 to 11-year-olds are sometimes or very often on diets, and 82% of their families are sometimes or very often on diets. This is a very important stat. This shows that your kids are watching you. They see you on diets and they assume that you think they should, or that if your body's not good enough, why is their body good enough? So they are watching you, and they will do what you do. At least 30 million people of all ages and gender suffer from an eating disorder in the US, and 11 to 15 million are teens. So about half of all people suffering from eating disorders are teens. That's crazy. Everybody over teens could be from young adult to senior citizen. That's not as bad as half the people just in their teen years. During their teen years, they're still growing, they're still figuring out who they are. They do not need something like this messing up their life. Every 62 minutes, at least one person dies as a direct result from an eating disorder. This is heartbreaking. That means every hour or so, one person at least dies from one of these eating disorders. And eating disorders can be resolved. We can help people with eating disorders that number can drop. 2.8% of American adults suffer from binge eating disorder in their lifetime. So that means in the lifetime they could have had it but got help, and it's still part of who they are, and it's still something that they could relapse into. But at least one time in their life, 2.8% of Americans suffered from binge eating. Similar to the next one, 1.8 of American women suffer from bulimia in their lifetime, and 0.9% of American women suffer from anorexia in their lifetime. These stats also include, they only include the survivors. These do not include those who have passed away as a result of an eating disorder, and the bottom two do not include men. It says American women because a lot of men are afraid to admit or come forward about their eating disorder. They are terrified because it's seen as a women's disease or something that's not okay for a man to experience. So many often the men will not talk about it or will not try to get help because it is seen like that and they don't want to be judged. Some myths about eating disorders. You can tell if someone has an eating disorder by looking at them. Like I said before, you can't always tell. For binge eating, like I said earlier, it is a normal body weight. They just get to control it more. So it's hard to tell by looking at them unless it's very, very obvious or very, very sickly, anorexic or binge eater. And then you can see it. But then it's a lot of rehab recovery time. So lots of support from the family and friends around that person. Eating disorders are a result of over-controlling parents and dysfunctional families. This is a myth because it's not about over-controlling parents or dysfunctional families. Every teenager thinks that their parents are over-controlling, even if you're not. You're just parenting. And dysfunctional families, again, it's not a result for eating disorders. Eating disorders is mental. It is something that they have in their system. It's a neurological disease in their brain that gets them the eating disorder. It is not because of over-controlling parents or dysfunctional families. Eating disorders are lifestyle choices is another myth. That is not true, like I mentioned earlier. It is in their brain. It is not a lifestyle choice. The next one is really, really big for me. Eating disorders are just a phase. They will go away if you ignore them. If you know somebody with an eating disorder or have an eating disorder, do not ignore it. You need to go get help. It is not something that's just going to go away in your teen. It's better to talk about it and get it out in the open and help them, because if you ignore it, it could kill your child. Recovering from eating disorders is rare. Again, not true. There are many, many success rates out there. A lot of people, the girl I mentioned earlier who was 9 when she was called fat, had an eating disorder very bad to the point where she was on her deathbed. But now she is 6 years recovered. She is healthy. She's back to the way she was before. And she said that she'll always have the thoughts and she'll always have that mental voice in her head telling her that she's fat or she needs to do it again. But she knows that she's beat it and that it's not true and how to live with it. So recovering is possible with the right support and right education on eating disorders. So there are many eating disorders in social media and media of all types in society. Sharing the Secret is a movie that's out there based on a true story about a girl suffering from an eating disorder and her mom trying to help her so she doesn't lose her daughter to an eating disorder. Very sad movie, but it gets eating disorders into the societal view. She has, in the top paragraph, is a paragraph from the song Scars to Your Beautiful by Alicia Cara. She talks in this paragraph about eating disorders, how she's starving herself and she's beautiful, and what does it take to be hungry if she's thinner, and it talks about how she doesn't know that she's beautiful even though she doesn't think so. Like, everything is beautiful. Everything you are is beautiful. It's an amazing, amazing song in that aspect. It talks about how you are perfect the way you are. And then the bottom paragraph is a poem, which the author is unknown, but it's very, very good poem. It talks about wasting down and shrinking and having these disorders, and trying to figure out why. And again, it's just getting it out there, which is important. So many times, eating disorders are linked to athletes. So this is some of the sports that have higher risks for developing eating disorders. So gymnastics, distance running, figure skating, ballet, wrestling, rowing, swimming and diving, and bodybuilding. These are seen that way because most of the time they have to maintain a body weight. So with trying to maintain the body weight or a small figure, they end up watching what they eat and like counting carbs and all the things that we said earlier were signs. They do, and then it just becomes a habit in their brain, and next thing you know, they have eating disorders. So if your kid does one of these, obviously watch a little more, because it is a very high risk for developing eating disorders. And coaches as well should be looking into this and being supportive of that as well, and being aware that it's possible. So we're going to talk about the Bible's view or Bible points on eating disorders. I think the Bible does great with talking about the body and it shows up a few times in the Bible. So in Genesis 1:27, you are made in the image of God. Perfect. Pretty self-explanatory. These are all great verses for talking to somebody with an eating disorder, saying you are made in the image of God, or one of these other ones is very effective. Proverbs 31:30, outward appearance does not matter as much as what's inside. Again, showing them that it's what's inside that makes you beautiful, not the outside, even though everything is perfect for you. Psalm 139, God for carefully forming our bodies even before birth, for creating us each unique and incredibly special. If God created our bodies, then they are good. 1 Corinthians 6:19-20 tells us, don't you know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit who lives in you and was given to you by God? You do not belong to yourself, for God brought you with a high price so you might honor God with your body. And 1 Peter 3:3, how you look is not what really makes you beautiful. So obviously people and kids and teens specifically care about how they look. That's just the society we're in. But this helps us show that it's how you treat people and it's what's inside that makes you you and that makes you perfect to God. But you are outside and inside made by God, and you are perfect in every way. So there are many treatment and resources out there to help if you know somebody with an eating disorder or you have an eating disorder yourself. So there's the Center for Eating Disorders, which is listed there, which is a great resource. Therapy also, there's therapy for the person going through eating disorders, and there's therapy for family members of people with eating disorders. So you can do either one of them, both. You can even do parent and child therapy, lots of different ways. A healing place is in Jackson, Michigan. It is also referred to as Brit and TJs. My friend TJ and another lady who actually has been surviving and living life named Brit, her parents and my friend TJ's parents opened this place with connections, and now it's a healing center for teens with eating disorders so that they don't feel so alone in this journey, because it's not a fun journey. It's something that they need to do, though. Dying to Be Perfect, again, that's the book that Susan, TJ's mother, wrote. It's an amazing, amazing book. Again, if you get a chance to check it out, it has a lot of resources as well, as she did the same type of thing. And then support groups. Support groups are really, really important. Your child is thinking that they're the only ones. But support groups are very, very good for you and your child. These are my sources of all my information. And obviously, if there's any questions, you can ask me sometime. If you see me, or feel free to ask anybody. You can also look online if you have more questions. But really look into this and know the signs and feel comfortable. I really, really hope that together we can help and get kids the help that they need. Thank you.